Recently, Prime Minister Netanyahu tossed up the idea of unilateral steps. Let me be clear. I will do everything possible to prevent unilateral withdrawals, and I will do everything in my power to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state smack in the heart of Israel. My reasons are quite simple. State. You know, when you look around, the whole region is falling apart. The whole region is fragmented. Nation states are going back to tribal mode. Why would this one startup in a difficult place where actually things are not perfect, but they're nowhere as bad as what's going on in Syria, Iraq, and all around, why would the free world, the West, still try to twist our arm into importing the incredible failure into the heart of Israel? I just don't get it. And it's such a strong conception. And unfortunately, only one thing will break this conception, and it's reality, because words won't do it. I have no doubt that a Palestinian state will be taken over by Hamas and become another launch pad for rocket and terror attacks against Israel. How do I know? Well, because it happened. Every time we did it, it happened. Every time we ceded a piece of land, it happened. In 95 to 2000, we handed over land to the PLO, and it turned into a launch pad of over 1,000 terror attacks. We did it in 2005. First time it was with an agreement. In 2005, it was unilateral, right? Did the same thing. We were promised a Singapore in the Middle East, and we got hell. And you know what? There's also another reason. This land belongs to the Jewish people. This week, this Shabbat, Jews all around the world are going to read the Torah portion about Jacob's dream and the famous ladder where angels were climbing up and down. Well, where did it take place? Was it in Tel Aviv? Perhaps in Holon? Maybe in Carmiel? No, it was in Beit El, just north of Jerusalem, in what some refer to as occupied West Bank. Let me be very clear. One cannot occupy his own home. But then people ask, so what do you propose? What can we do? And I'm going to say this again and again. I put a plan on the table. Is it perfect? By no means. It's an imperfect plan for a very imperfect situation. The plan is simple. Apply Israeli sovereignty on Area C, where there's roughly 450,000 Israelis and less than 100,000 Palestinians. Offer them full Israeli citizenship. But then we retain Ariel, Ma'ale Adumim, Ofra, Beit El, all of the Israeli-controlled areas. In areas A and B, provide an enhanced autonomy, if you will, autonomy on steroids, because we don't want to govern them. We don't want to run their schools. We don't want to take their taxes. We don't want to run their hospitals. They can do it. And work through. And you say, it's imperfect, they won't agree. Okay, we can do it unilaterally. And then work through it. Just don't make the situation worse, because it's not great, but it's certainly the best situation in the whole Middle East. The best place, second only to Israel itself, for Arabs to live is Judea and Samaria today. The Prime Minister spoke about keeping military control at all costs. And sort of the subtext is that while we can take away civilians, we have to retain military control. Here I also differ, and I want to explain. The reality is that where there are no Israeli citizens, there are no Israeli soldiers. You might sustain it for a few months, perhaps a couple of years. I was a soldier in southern Lebanon. Ultimately, we incurred about 15 to 25 deaths a year, losses a year in southern Lebanon. But because we have no claim, because there's no Jews living there day in, day out, no one riding the roads, no one keeping the channels of life open, we couldn't stay there. No place is sustainable, neither Jordan Valley or anywhere else, without Israeli citizens. Ultimately, soldiers won't stay there. I know how it works in Israel. Public opinion will be, why are we sacrificing anyway? There's no Jews. So it's important to understand what we call the settlers. They are Israel's defensive shield. What they're incurring today is defending Israel from the same things happening in Tel Aviv and Haifa. I want to end and say I'm incredibly optimistic about Israel. Look what's going on during this period. Man, we're growing. High tech, 2 years ago, $2.5 billion of VC investments in startups. Last year, 3.6. This year, $4.5 billion of investment in Israeli startups. That's huge. We're exporting water technologies to India. We're getting dairy technologies in China, allowing medical technologies all around the world. We just heard these folks from the startup. And we're returning to our Jewish identity. And my vision for Israel is to be a lighthouse in this huge, huge Islamic storm. We're a lighthouse that pierces those clouds and shows the world how you can be surrounded by lethal enemies, yet be a light upon nation. Toda rabba.